The morning sun cast long shadows across the Morrison farm in Montana as 8-year-old. Lucy fed the chickens behind the old red barn. She hummed a song her mother had taught her while scattering grain from her small bucket. The chickens clucked and pecked at the ground around her feet. Lucy loved this time of day when everything felt peaceful and the world seemed full of endless possibilities. Above the farm, something moved through the clouds that did not belong there. The ship was massive but completely silent, its hull reflecting the sky so perfectly that even someone looking directly at it would see nothing but blue and white. Inside the vessel, 3 beings studied the human child through their scanning equipment. Commander Zeth of the Galactic Council Fleet adjusted his viewing screen and made notes on his datapad. The child appeared healthy and would serve there. Research purposes well. His species, the Korthik, had been conducting biological studies on primitive worlds for over 2 centuries. To him, this was routine work, no different from collecting plant samples or capturing wild animals for study. The second being, a tall gray creature called Vex, monitored the area for any signs of advanced technology or military presence. There, sensors showed nothing more sophisticated than basic electrical systems and crude farming equipment. The humans of this world were exactly as primitive as the Council's reports indicated. No space travel, no energy weapons, no defensive systems. Worth mentioning, the third member of the team, Dr. Nira, prepared the specimen containment unit. She had overseen hundreds of these collection missions across dozens of worlds. The Council's Xenobiology Division needed fresh samples from developing species to better understand how intelligence evolved across the galaxy. This human child would contribute valuable data to their research programs. Lucy finished feeding the chickens and started walking back toward the farmhouse where her mother was preparing breakfast. She could smell bacon cooking, and her stomach rumbled with hunger. Her father would be coming in from the north field soon, and they would all sit together at the kitchen table like they did every morning. Above her, the alien ship activated its collection beam. A column of pale blue light descended from the sky and surrounded Lucy before she could react. She looked up in confusion as the world around her began to fade. The chickens scattered in panic. The bucket fell from her hands and grain spilled. Across the ground, Lucy tried to call out for her parents, but no sound came from her mouth. The beam lifted her slowly into the air as everything she knew grew smaller below her. She could see her house, the barn, the fields where her father worked, all shrinking away until they were just tiny squares of green and brown. Then the beam pulled her inside the ship, and the familiar world disappeared completely. Inside the vessel, Lucy found herself in a white room with smooth walls and a ceiling that glowed with soft light. She stood on a platform in the center of the space, surrounded by 3 creatures she had never imagined could exist. They were tall and thin with large dark eyes and skin that looked almost transparent. They spoke in sounds she could not understand, pointing devices at her that beeped, and Lucy started to cry. She wanted her mother and father. She wanted to be back in the kitchen, eating breakfast and listening to her parents talk about their plans for the day. Instead, she was trapped in this strange place with these frightening beings who treated her like she was not even human. Commander Zeth recorded the child's emotional responses in his data files. Human tears appeared to be similar to those of several other species they had studied. The sodium content would need to be analyzed along with other biological samples they would collect during their research. He made a note to have Dr. Nira prepare the medical equipment for a full biological scan. Meanwhile, on the farm below, Lucy's mother Carol called out the kitchen window. Breakfast was ready, but Lucy had not come inside. Carol walked out to the chicken coop and found the scattered grain and empty bucket. She called Lucy's name, but heard no response. A cold fear began to grow in her chest. as she searched the barn and looked behind every building on the property. When her husband Danny came in from the field, Carol was standing in their driveway with tears streaming down her face. The bucket lay on its side near the chicken coop with grain scattered everywhere. Lucy was nowhere to be found. They called the sheriff, and within an hour their small farm was filled with police cars and search teams. The search continued for 3 days. Dogs tracked Lucy's scent to the chicken coop, but found no trail leading away from that spot. It was as if she had simply vanished into the air. The FBI arrived and questioned everyone in the county. They found no evidence of kidnapping, no tire tracks, no witnesses, nothing that could explain how an 8-year-old girl could disappear so completely. High above Earth's atmosphere, the council ship prepared for its journey back to the research. Stationed on Kepler 442b, Lucy sat in her containment cell, a small white room with a bed and basic facilities. The walls were transparent from the outside, allowing her captors to observe her constantly. She had stopped crying, but had not spoken a word since her capture. Dr. Nira reviewed the preliminary scans of their new specimen. The human child showed typical brain activity for her species and age group. Her physical development was normal, and she appeared to be in excellent health. The research team on Kepler 442b would be pleased with this acquisition. The child would provide months of valuable data about human biology and behavior. The ship's navigation system plotted a course through hyperspace that would take them far beyond human space. Earth's primitive sensors could not detect their passage or track their destination. As far as the humans were concerned, Lucy Morrison had simply vanished without a trace. The council expected no retaliation from such a backward species. They had taken specimens from hundreds of worlds and never faced any meaningful resistance. As the ship jumped into hyperspace, carrying Lucy away from everything she had ever known, the council beings settled in for the long journey. They had no way of knowing that their routine collection mission had just set in motion events that would reshape the entire galaxy. The child sleeping in her cell would soon become the spark that ignited humanity's rise to galactic dominance. But, for now, Lucy Morrison was alone, afraid, and millions of miles from home, while her parents grieved on a small farm in Montana, and the beings who took her continued their work as if nothing significant had happened at all. Captain Jake Harrison stared at the intercepted transmission on his screen for the 3rd time, his hands clenched into fists. The message was in the alien language called Korthik Standard, but Earth's translation computers had decoded every word. A human child had been taken from Montana 3 weeks ago. The aliens called her subject 7749H and planned to use her for biological experiments. Jake worked for the Earth Defense Force, a secret organization that monitored alien activity around Earth. Most people on the planet did not even know aliens existed, but the military had been tracking their ships for years. They had learned the alien languages, studied their technology, and prepared for the day when contact would become unavoidable. That day had arrived in the worst possible way. The transmission came from a council research station on a planet called Kepler 442b, over 400 light-years from Earth. The message was routine, communication between alien scientists discussing their current test subjects. They mentioned the human child casually, like she was nothing more than a lab rat. They were excited about studying her brain activity and planned to begin invasive procedures within the month. Jake forwarded the translation to Admiral Kate Sullivan at Earth Defense Command. Within 2 hours, every major government leader on Earth knew that aliens had kidnapped Lucy Morrison. The girl's disappearance had been front-page news for weeks. Her parents had appeared on television, begging for information about their missing daughter. Now they finally had answers, but those answers were worse than anyone had imagined. President Lisa Carter convened an emergency meeting in the White House Situation Room. She sat at the head of a long table surrounded by military advisors, intelligence chiefs, and the world's top scientists. The intercepted alien transmissions played on screens around the room, translated into English subtitles that made everyone's blood run cold. "They took our child like she was an animal," President Carter said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "They're planning to cut her open to see how her brain works. This is not just kidnapping. This is torture." Admiral Sullivan spread star charts across the table, showing the location of the alien research station. A facility is heavily defended and surrounded by a fleet of warships. Getting there would require technology we don't officially possess. Any rescue mission would expose capabilities we've kept secret for years. Dr. Robert Hayes, the head of Earth's xenobiology program, had been studying alien communications for over a decade. He knew more about Council society than any other human alive. "The Galactic Council sees us as primitives," he explained. "In their records, humans are classified as a developing species with limited intelligence. They don't think we're capable of interstellar travel or advanced warfare." "What makes them so confident?" asked General Patricia Moore, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. "They've been the dominant power in this galaxy for over 1,000 years, Dr. Hayes replied. "They've conquered hundreds of worlds and defeated every species that challenged them. To them, taking our child is like a scientist collecting insects for study. They don't expect any retaliation because they don't think we're capable of it." President Carter stood and walked to the window overlooking the White House lawn. Outside, protesters had gathered demanding action to find Lucy Morrison. They held signs with her picture and called for the government to do something, anything, to bring her home. The president knew that if she told them the truth about alien abduction, it would cause worldwide panic. "We need to try diplomacy first," she decided. "If these aliens have any sense of morality, they'll return Lucy when they understand how much she means to us." Ambassador Paul Martinez had spent his entire career negotiating with foreign governments, but this would be his strangest assignment. He worked with Earth's best linguists to craft a message in perfect Cortex standard, explaining human emotions and family bonds. The message requested Lucy's immediate return and offered peaceful contact between Earth and the Galactic Council. Transmission was sent through deep space communication arrays that Earth had built in secret. The message traveled faster than light, using quantum entanglement technology reverse-engineered from crashed alien ships. It reached the Council's central government on their capital world of Nexus Prime. In less than 3 days, the Council's response arrived 72 hours later. High Chancellor Zaris, the leader of the Galactic Council, had personally reviewed Earth's request. His reply was polite but firm, delivered in the tone one might use when refusing to return a borrowed book. The specimen designated as subject 7749H has been lawfully acquired for essential xenobiological research, the message stated. This research will contribute to the greater understanding of biological development across the galaxy and benefit all member species of the Council. The primitive humans of Earth should feel honored that one of their kind has been selected for such important scientific work. The message continued with an offer of compensation. The Council was willing to grant Earth mining rights to a small asteroid belt in the Outer Rim territories. They would also provide basic water purification, technology that could help solve Earth's environmental problems. In their view, this was generous payment for what they considered a single specimen from an unimportant world. President Carter read the alien response 3 times before speaking. When she finally looked up at her advisors, her eyes burned with quiet fury. "They're offering to pay us for our child like she's livestock they purchased at a market." "What are our options?" asked Admiral Sullivan. "We give them one more chance," the president replied. Then we show them exactly how primitive humans can be when someone threatens our children. That evening, President Carter addressed the world from the Oval Office. She could not reveal the truth about alien contact, but she could send a message that would reach far beyond Earth's atmosphere. She looked directly into the camera and spoke with the voice of an angry mother. To those who have taken Lucy Morrison, she said, knowing the aliens would intercept and translate her words. You have 72 hours to return her safely to her family. After that time, we will consider all diplomatic solutions to have failed. A people of Earth do not negotiate with kidnappers, and we do not abandon our children. The broadcast was transmitted on every frequency Earth could generate, including the alien communication channels the Council used for their own messages. High Chancellor Zaris received the translation within hours and found it amusing. His military analysts ran probability calculations on human combat capabilities and concluded that Earth posed no meaningful threat to Council forces. The Council had defeated spacefaring civilizations with weapons that could destroy planets. They had crushed rebellions by species far more advanced than humanity. The idea that primitive humans could threaten the mighty Galactic Council was laughable. They decided not to respond to Earth's ultimatum at all. The 72-hour deadline passed in silence. The Council continued their research on Lucy Morrison, while Earth's leaders watched the clock tick down to zero. When the time limit expired, President Carter signed a single executive order that activated protocols the world had never seen before. Admiral Sullivan received the order at Earth Defense Command and immediately began the largest military mobilization in human history. The time for diplomacy had ended, and the Council was about to learn that their assessment of human capabilities was the last mistake they would ever make. Admiral Kate Sullivan walked through the underground corridors of Cheyenne Mountain, her footsteps echoing off metal walls that had been carved deep into solid rock. The facility looked like any other military installation from the outside, but below ground it housed humanity's most classified secrets. Today, those secrets would finally see the light of day. She stopped at a security door, marked with warnings in 6 languages. The scanner read her biometrics, and the massive steel door slid open with a quiet hiss. Beyond lay a chamber the size of an aircraft hangar, filled with ships that did not belong to any nation on Earth. The vessels were sleek and angular, their hulls made from materials that seemed to bend light around them. Dr. Alan Foster approached, with a tablet in his hands, his face showing the exhaustion of a man who had not slept in 3 days. He had been the director of Project Nightfall for over a decade, working in absolute secrecy to prepare humanity for this exact moment. We have 47 ships ready for immediate deployment, he reported, all equipped with quantum tunnel drives and full stealth capabilities. The ships had been built using technology recovered from alien crashes over the past 50 years. Every component had been reverse engineered and improved upon by Earth's best scientists and engineers. The aliens had been visiting Earth for decades, but they had also been leaving behind pieces of their technology when their ships malfunctioned or were shot down by experimental human weapons. Colonel Maria Santos supervised the loading of weapon systems into each vessel. The projectiles looked simple enough, just metal rods about the size of telephone poles, but their simplicity was deceptive. When fired from a ship traveling at 90% of light speed, these kinetic weapons would hit their targets with the force of nuclear bombs. The aliens had energy shields that could stop laser weapons and particle beams, but they had no defense against chunks of metal moving at relativistic speeds. How long until we can launch? Admiral Sullivan asked. 18 hours, Dr. Foster replied. We're loading the final AI cores now. The artificial intelligence systems were humanity's secret weapon. While aliens relied on biological consciousness for decision-making, humans had developed computer minds that could think and react thousands of times faster than any living brain. These AI systems were connected through quantum entanglement, creating a communication network that operated outside normal space and time. The aliens could jam radio signals and disrupt electronic systems, but they could not interfere with quantum-entangled particles. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Clark stood before a holographic display showing the locations of Council installations across 17 star systems. Intelligence gathered over years of careful observation had revealed the positions of military bases, research facilities, and government centers. Each target had been analyzed and cataloged, with detailed plans for their destruction. The research station holding Lucy Morrison is here, he explained, pointing to a red dot on the star map. It's defended by 12 warships and surrounded by automated defense platforms. Standard Council doctrine calls for overlapping energy shields and coordinated fire patterns. Admiral Sullivan studied the tactical display. The aliens had built their defenses to counter the type of warfare they understood. They expected enemies to approach in large fleets, broadcasting challenges and demanding surrender before engaging in prolonged battles. They had never faced an enemy that could appear without warning and strike with weapons that traveled at near light speed. What about their main fleet? She asked. The Eternal Dominion and its escort ships are stationed at Nexus Prime, Ryan replied. 68 vessels, including their flagship. They consider it the most powerful naval force in the galaxy. Dr. Foster pulled up specifications for the Eternal Dominion on his tablet. The ship was enormous, over 3 kilometers long and armed with weapons capable of destroying entire moons. It had been the flagship of the Council fleet for over 2 centuries and had never been defeated in battle. The aliens considered it unsinkable, a symbol of their eternal dominance over the galaxy. It will be our first target, Admiral Sullivan decided. When that ship dies, every alien in the galaxy will know that the rules have changed. Across the underground facility, thousands of military personnel prepared for humanity's first interstellar war. They had trained for this moment in secret, practicing maneuvers that Earth's enemies thought were impossible. Human pilots learned to fly ships that could tunnel through space itself, appearing anywhere in the galaxy without warning. Ground forces prepared assault equipment designed to penetrate alien armor and disable their technology. The quantum communication arrays that connected Earth to its deep space monitoring stations buzzed with encrypted messages. Intelligence reports flowed in from robotic probes that had been watching alien movements for years. The Council's military forces were spread across the galaxy in their standard defensive positions, confident that their empire was safe from attack. Captain Lisa Turner received her mission briefing in a secure conference room. She would lead the assault team that would rescue Lucy Morrison from the research station on Kepler 442b. Her ship, the Shadow Strike, was equipped with advanced scanning equipment that could locate a single human child among thousands of alien researchers and test subjects. The girl will be terrified, Dr. Foster warned. She's been in alien custody for almost a month. She may not trust anyone who tries to help her. Lisa nodded. She had children of her own and could imagine the trauma Lucy had endured. We'll get her out, she promised, whatever it takes. The final 18 hours passed quickly as Earth's secret military prepared for war. Ships were fueled and armed, crews received their final briefings, and AI systems ran through millions of combat simulations. The quantum communication network synchronized all forces across the galaxy, ensuring that every attack would happen at exactly the same moment. President Carter gave the final authorization at exactly midnight, Greenwich. Meantime, Admiral Sullivan received the launch codes and entered them into the command system. Across 17 star systems, human ships powered up their quantum tunnel drives and prepared to emerge from hyperspace around their targets. Commander Steve Phillips prepared to broadcast humanity's declaration of war on all council communication. Frequencies. His message was simple and direct, recorded in perfect Korthic standard, so there could be no misunderstanding. "You took our child," he would tell them. "We told you the consequences. This is humanity keeping its word." The countdown reached 0, and 47 human ships disappeared into quantum tunnels, racing across the galaxy at speeds that made light seem slow. In less than 6 hours, they would arrive at their targets simultaneously, and the Galactic Council would learn that Earth's greatest export was not culture or technology, it was consequences. The Eternal Dominion drifted peacefully through the void around Nexus Prime, its massive hull reflecting the light of 3 distant suns. Admiral Corax stood on the command bridge, reviewing routine patrol reports from across the galaxy. The ship had been his home for over 40 years, and he felt as safe aboard her as he would in his own living quarters on the planet below. The Council's flagship was surrounded by 67 escort vessels, all maintaining perfect formation as they orbited the capital world. Their sensors swept space continuously, watching for any sign of approaching ships or dangerous objects. The detection grid could spot a vessel as small as a fighter craft from over 1 million kilometers away. None of their instruments detected the quantum tunnels opening in space around them. Admiral Kate Sullivan's task force emerged from hyperspace. In perfect synchronization, 23 human ships materializing in a spherical formation around the alien fleet. The Council vessels appeared on their screens like sitting ducks, completely unaware that death had arrived in their midst. "All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan," she broadcast over the quantum communication network. "Fire on my mark. Target the flagship first." The Shadow Wing, Night Hunter, and Void Striker aligned their weapons with mathematical precision. Their AI systems calculated trajectory, speed, and impact points in microseconds. The kinetic projectiles were already accelerating toward their targets. Before the alien sensors registered the presence of human ships, Admiral Corax saw the proximity alarms begin flashing on his control panels. Just as the first relativistic rounds struck the Eternal Dominion, the metal rods accelerated to 90% of light speed, punched through the ship's shields as if they were made of paper. Each impact released energy equivalent to a small nuclear weapon, tearing massive holes in the flagship's hull. The great ship, pride of the Council fleet for over 2 centuries, began breaking apart under the devastating barrage. Internal explosions rippled through her corridors as atmosphere vented into space through dozens of breaches. Admiral Corax had time for one final transmission before his bridge disappeared in a ball of expanding plasma. "Unknown ships are attacking the capital fleet," he broadcast to Council Command. "They appeared without warning. The Eternal Dominion is lost. We are all lost." The transmission cut off as the flagship's reactor core breached, sending a flash of white light across the star system. The escort vessels attempted to return fire, but their weapons could not lock onto targets that moved like ghosts through space. Human ships appeared, fired their devastating volleys, and vanished back into quantum tunnels before the aliens could respond. 6 minutes and 37 seconds after the attack began, the Council's most powerful fleet had been reduced to drifting wreckage. Not a single human ship had been damaged. Meanwhile, Captain Lisa Turner's rescue team materialized around the research station on Kepler 442b. The facility was a massive structure built into an asteroid, defended by automated weapon platforms and a squadron of patrol ships. Dr. Nero was in the middle of preparing Lucy Morrison for another round of medical tests when the station's alarm systems began screaming. "Unidentified vessels detected," the automated voice announced. "All personnel, report to emergency stations. This is not a drill." Dr. Nero looked at her instruments in confusion. The station's sensors showed 12 ships surrounding the facility, but their configuration did not match any vessel in the Council database. The unknown ships were smaller than standard Council warships, but appeared to be heavily armed. Lisa. Turner studied the tactical display from her command chair aboard the Shadow Strike. The research station's defenses were formidable, but designed to fight conventional battles. The automated weapons expected enemies to approach slowly, allowing time for targeting and coordinated fire. They were not prepared for ships that could peer anywhere instantly. "Begin the assault," she ordered. "Remember, we need that facility intact. A girl is somewhere inside." Human fighters launched from the larger ships, swarming around the alien defense platforms like angry wasps. The platform's weapons tracked frantically, trying to lock onto targets that moved in patterns no biological pilot could survive. The human craft were flown by AI systems that could pull maneuvers that would crush organic bodies under crushing gravitational forces. One by one, the defense platforms exploded under concentrated fire from the human fighters. The patrol ships attempted to form a defensive line, but found themselves facing enemies that could appear behind them, above them, or below them without warning. The quantum tunnel drives allowed human ships to treat three-dimensional space like a highway with infinite on-ramps. Inside the research station, Dr. Nero watched her security screens as armored figures moved through the corridors with deadly efficiency. They were humanoid, but moved within human speed and precision. Her guards fired energy weapons at the intruders, but the beams seemed to pass through them without effect. The invaders were human soldiers, wearing advanced combat suits equipped with personal shield generators. The energy weapons that could stop most alien species were useless against Earth's military technology. The soldiers moved through the facility like unstoppable machines, disabling resistance and securing objectives with mechanical precision. Lucy Morrison sat in her cell, pressing herself against the far wall as explosions echoed through the station. She had been afraid for so long that fear had become normal, but these new sounds were different. The aliens around her seemed terrified, running through the corridors and shouting in their strange language. The door to her cell suddenly exploded inward, and a figure in dark armor stepped through the smoke. Lucy scrambled backward, certain that something even worse than her captors had arrived. But then the figure removed its helmet, revealing the face of a human woman with kind eyes. "Hello, Lucy," Captain Turner said gently. "My name is Lisa. I'm here to take you home." Lucy stared at the woman in disbelief. After weeks of being surrounded by aliens who treated her like a laboratory animal, seeing another human face seemed impossible. "Are you real?" she whispered. "I'm real," Lisa assured her, "and so are the people who sent me to find you. Your parents are waiting for you back on Earth." As Lisa helped Lucy to her feet, Commander Steve Phillips was broadcasting humanity's message across all Council communication frequencies. His words reached every alien world simultaneously, carried by the same quantum networks the Council used for their own communications. "People of the Galactic Council," he began, speaking in perfect Quartic standard. "You took a human child from her family. You were warned of the consequences. Now you see that humanity keeps its word. Your military forces are being destroyed. Across 17 star systems, your fleets are burning. Your bases are falling." The message continued as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Human forces had struck simultaneously at every major Council installation. Military bases that had stood for centuries were reduced to rubble in minutes. Fleets that had conquered dozens of worlds were being systematically annihilated by weapons they could not understand or counter. "This war ends when you return what you stole," Steve's message concluded. "Until then, Earth will demonstrate that even primitive humans understand justice." The galaxy watched in shock as humanity's answer echoed across the stars, written in fire and devastation that would reshape the balance of power forever. The war lasted exactly 6 hours and 14 minutes. When the last Council warship exploded in a brilliant flash of light near the Omega Centauri system, a silence fell across the galaxy that had not existed for over 1,000 years. The mighty Galactic Council, rulers of 10,000 worlds and conquerors of countless species, no longer possessed a single military vessel capable of interstellar flight. High Chancellor Xeris stood in his command center on Nexus Prime, staring at screens that showed nothing but empty space where his fleets had been. Red warning lights flashed throughout the building as emergency broadcasts flooded in from across the galaxy. Every major military installation had been destroyed. Every fleet had been eliminated. The Council's 1,000-year reign had ended in less than a single day. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked his aide, though he already knew the answer. "None, High Chancellor," came the quiet reply. "Our entire military force has been destroyed. The humans left our civilian vessels and government facilities intact, but every warship, every defense platform, every military base is gone." Xeris had ruled the galaxy for over 2 centuries, commanding forces that could destroy entire solar systems. He had crushed rebellions by species far more advanced than humans, but those enemies had followed the accepted rules of galactic warfare. They had announced their intentions, demanded negotiations, and fought conventional battles that lasted for months or years. The humans had simply appeared without warning and erased the race, Council's military power before anyone understood what was happening. On Earth, Lucy Morrison sat in the back seat of her father's pickup truck as they drove down the familiar dirt road toward their farm in Montana. She pressed her face against the window, watching the fields and trees that she had missed so desperately during her weeks in captivity. Everything looked exactly the same as when she had been taken, but Lucy felt different, older somehow. Her Mother Carol reached back from the front seat to squeeze her hand. "We're almost home, sweetheart," she said softly. Lucy had not spoken much since the rescue, but her parents understood that she needed time to process what had happened to her Danny. Morrison gripped the steering wheel tighter as he thought about what the government officials had told him. His daughter had been kidnapped by aliens and held in a research facility on another world. The story sounded impossible, but Lucy was here beside him, safe and alive, brought home by soldiers who had traveled across the galaxy to find her. President Carter had visited the Morrison family personally to explain what the government could reveal about the situation. Earth had been monitoring alien activity for decades, she told them, but Lucy's kidnapping had forced them to take action. The aliens responsible had been defeated, and humanity was now working to ensure that nothing like this could ever happen. Again, Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge of her flagship as it approached Nexus Prime, the capital world of the former Galactic Council. Her fleet of human vessels moved through space with the confidence of absolute victory. The planet's orbital defenses had been dismantled, and its government was requesting immediate negotiations. The quantum communication array crackled to life with an incoming transmission from the planet's surface. High Chancellor Xeris appeared on the main screen, his tall frame bent with defeat. Behind him, other council members sat in chairs that suddenly seemed too large for their diminished status. "Admiral Sullivan of Earth," Xeris began, his voice carefully controlled. "I am prepared to discuss terms for the cessation of hostilities." "There are no hostilities to cease," Admiral Sullivan replied. "Your military no longer exists. What we need to discuss are the terms of your surrender." The words hit the council chamber like a physical blow. For over a millennium, they had been the ones dictating surrender terms to defeated enemies. Now they sat powerless, while a species they had dismissed as primitive animals demanded their submission. "What are your terms?" Xeris asked. Admiral Sullivan consulted her datapad, though she had memorized every point hours earlier. First, all council members responsible for ordering the abduction of Lucy Morrison will be transferred to Earth for trial. Second, the Galactic Council will dissolve its current government structure and establish a new system that includes human oversight. Third, detailed records of all species under Council control will be provided to Earth authorities. She paused to let the implications sink in before continuing. Fourth, any species that wishes to leave Council territory can establish independent governments will be free to do so. Fifth, human settlements will be established on key worlds throughout the galaxy to ensure compliance with these terms. The Council members looked at each other in shock. They were not just being defeated, but completely replaced. The galaxy they had ruled for 1,000 years was being handed over to the humans they had considered barely intelligent enough to qualify as a spacefaring species. And if we refuse these terms? Zaris asked, though he already knew the answer. Then, Earth will consider the Council a hostile force and act accordingly, Admiral Sullivan replied. You have seen what happens to those who threaten human children. Do not test our resolve further. The trial of the Council leaders took place on Earth 6 months later. High Chancellor Zaris, Dr. Nira, Commander Zeph, and 12 other officials were convicted of kidnapping and crimes against humanity. They were sentenced to life imprisonment on a research station orbiting Jupiter, where they would contribute to scientific studies of alien biology and behavior. The irony was not lost on anyone involved. The beings who had casually taken a human child for experimentation would spend the rest of their lives as test subjects themselves, experiencing the same helplessness and fear they had inflicted on Lucy Morrison. Lucy herself testified at the trial, via video link from her family's farm. She spoke quietly but clearly about her time in captivity, describing the fear and loneliness she had felt when surrounded by creatures who treated her like an animal. Her testimony brought tears to the eyes of hardened military officers and reminded everyone why humanity had gone to war. Across the galaxy, the transition of power proceeded smoothly. Most alien species welcomed the change, having grown tired of the Council's authoritarian rule. The humans proved to be surprisingly fair administrators, allowing local governments significant autonomy, as long as they followed basic principles of individual rights and species dignity. Earth established the Galactic Protection Force to maintain peace and prevent future conflicts. Human ships patrolled the star lanes, their advanced technology ensuring that no species could threaten another without facing overwhelming retaliation. The galaxy had learned that humanity's mercy was as absolute as their vengeance, but the lesson about consequences was never forgotten. Lucy Morrison grew up to become an ambassador, working to build better relationships between Earth and the Ole. Many alien species scattered across the galaxy. She often spoke about forgiveness and understanding, but she never forgot the scared little girl who had been taken from her family's farm. Her story became legend across 1,000 worlds, proof that sometimes the smallest spark could ignite the most. Transformative fire, the child whose rescue had rewritten the balance of galactic power, lived a long and peaceful life on the farm, where her journey began, surrounded by the family who had moved heaven and earth to bring her home.